Hello, this is my song of spirituality. This is my song for all humanity. That's as far as we've got so far, just off the top of the head, altering the hymn Finlandia. I put a community post up sharing a video and just watch the sequence of the way the pictures unfold and what it reveals. We've got about 47% battery on this device at the moment, and sometimes it will cut out at about 38%. Interesting number, just 138. So this may end abruptly, but it's in the moment I feel inspired, definitely come out of the silence, as it were. I invite you to either physically come here or through correspondence. It's amazing what comes out. Several people independently have said to me, this will be your year, and already it is. I'm in this state of gratitude, and it is so heartwarming when I get intellectually matched questions and correspondence. That is the icing on the cake, as it were. What I wanted to talk about was really referencing this physical being to explain things, namely, or in particular, about being a walk-in. It is said about look to yourself for the answers. So I am a self-created being of Dr. Juan Four, which is 144. That is reflected in the body. To start with, the height is 6 foot, referencing chakras. But if we put that into metric, it becomes 1.83 meters, which is a permutation of 138. Shoe size is either 10 or 44. Chest size is 44. Waist size, I believe, is about 30 inches. Interesting that in some ways physically I have shrunk, and yet the hands and feet have both gone from a 9 to a 10. So a size 10, we knock the 0 off, you're left with a 1, convert to metric, you have a 44. I invite you to look at your physical being and see what numbers come out and what it shows to you in that. I feel you'll find that very revealing. I also wanted to talk about colour. This is going somewhere here. I refer you to what Rudolf Steiner says about colours. What he calls the primary colours, which is black, which is the spirit's image of the lifeless, and white, which is the soul's image of the spirit. And if you shine red through black, you get cherry blossom, which represents living animated skin colour. And the fourth of those primary colours is green, which in the plant kingdom, if you look below the surface, the green is the lifeless image of the living. But colours in this reality are nothing like the other side. From what Rudolf Steiner says about this, red just wants to spread out evenly. Yellow radiates out, which you can certainly see with the sun and with sunflowers, how that colour will radiate outwards. Its opposite is blue, which seems to bank up at the outsides and draw in. What I can say further to this, there is definitely another world where the colours, the closest I can describe to you in the physical sense, are how you would see colours through stained glass windows when the sun is shining through. But that doesn't really describe what those colours look like. They're nothing like in this realm. I have personally witnessed how if you spin white and yellow together, it creates green. Likewise, if you spin yellow and green together, it makes white. If you spin blue and white together, you get silver. Those are the ones I have actually witnessed with the mind's eye. The other side, as it were, does look just like this. If you encounter something like a wolf, it wouldn't howl, but there would be a telepathic communication. It is not quite the same in this reality, but there is also another realm. I suppose you could call it like a reception room. During the period between the fifth walk-in soul in this physical being transitioning into the sixth, there was a period of about 30 days, a lunar count of changing places. So walk-in number 6 comes into this body, while the walkout soul number 5 goes into this reception area, sort of, should we say, a cosmic void that is neither in a realm past the threshold of death, but somewhere else. But you can't give physical directions or coordinates to any of these things. But of course, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. So the transition between 5 and 6 was one where, as the incoming walk-in soul number 6, the stipulation is that let it all go. Anything that is clutter, which from a pharmaceutical doctor's point of view would label as amnesia, but rather it is more like the way the Google Cloud operates, or how you get information on a cell phone, in that it is not stored in the phone, but it can be accessed as and when it is required. What is actually left are the basics, being able to function in this reality. But people will mention famous names of actors and actresses, for example, and say, well, you must have heard of them. Well, somewhere in that cloud, that information probably is there. But not only that, when we turn to April the 6th, or Aries the 17th of 2024, or 5918, that's when number 6, where there is no loss of energy, became the present being that I am, which is number 7. So there is a lot that is missing throughout the sort of history of this physical being. For example, it comes back to that biblical passage, but some say you're this, some say you're that, to which I would reply, well, who do you say that I am? Because this is a thing people seem to really struggle with, is understanding that the physical body, the surface level, it's only a vehicle for what resides within, and that can change. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave from the Hotel California. That line, it seems like almost like a contradiction, but when you grasp that you can check out any time you like refers to the soul, but you can never leave actually refers to the mortal remains. That is what that song is talking about. I heard a mission bell and I thought this could be heaven or this could be hell. Well, since coming out of the silence in particular, I am experiencing that very thing as discussed in the previous video. Once again, a beautiful moment already today. I was only thinking about mentioning Bruckner's Fifth Symphony in a correspondence, and of course it comes on the radio. It is a fantastic symphony. It is magical in, it's like that potential of what's coming next. I feel in this reality, that I'm walking a path that is shown in the dialogue in these Bruckner symphonies. So I'm at the philosopher stage, the number 6, which will lead to a wonderful number 7. This is something I feel a conversation you really should have with yourself. It's something that I have done. That is to split yourself into 4 parts. 1 and 4, again, is the reference is starting to appear there. So you have your inner child, the frightened inner child that constantly needs reassurance. To that I said, look, you've been in tough or seemingly tough situations, and have we always not come out of it? And we're able to then look back and say, yeah, that seemed bad at that moment, but it passed. That's happened many times. Now to the ego. The ego wants recognition. The ego side, and I have to acknowledge this, does love the beautiful comments I get back to videos. It does appreciate that. But what I said to the ego was this. I'm going to be totally honest with you. You want recognition. I don't know if that's going to happen. It may happen in 200 or 300 years. How does that sound? The excitement, the potential of that is enough to feed that ego. So I then said to the 2 parts, the 4th part obviously is the 3rd part is the observer of this. The 4th part, the all-important part, is the higher self that is having this conversation with the inner child and the ego. So you bring it to a point and it's like, are we all on the same page here? Are we all going in one direction? And the answer is yes. It is intuition. But of course, it has to be in balance. It comes back to what I've said before about where does that inspiration, that inspire, ration come from? Because it is a ration. Because if you were to get it all in one explosion, it would be just like the atomic bomb looks like a brain, and it would be equally destructive. It would be called insanity. It would be sanitized. You'd find out why, and it would be going on inside, and you would be labeled as totally insane. But the idea, that spark, where does it really come from? And the answer is, it is in breathe, it is in see, it is in hear, and it is in feel. Disregard the spelling. Go with the sound, and you'll hear the EA. But when that EA has attached to it an ID, as an individualized artist or a creator of something, that is what the idea is. It's coming from, well, it comes from within, which is actually without. It's all the same thing. We're in a reality where everything is polar opposites and has this perception of duality. But it has to have this perception of duality. If you remember on the previous video, I jokingly said, well, it's not so sunny right now. Well, hopefully you can see it through there. It's a beautiful day. It's gone from one where it was very misty and damp this morning, and nature kissed everything, the ground and everything upwards. So everything was rather wet with a heavy sort of dew. But it was a mist, not a fog. It wasn't that dense. It is human energy that empowers everything, so even a fog can be desolidified into more of a mist, because it is the mystery that you're seeking, is it not? Being able to pierce the veil, be able to see through the layers. So, as a perfect example, listen to that Rudolf Steiner lecture about colour, and what goes with those colours when you see through the colour and you see the spiritual side of that colour. As Neville Goddard says, the other world, as it were, is no different from this. What I would and it does feel as solid and as real as this one. But consider when you have a dream, how real and how solid are those things? Do you ever actually pick an object up? Do you ever sit down and drink a cup of tea or something in that dream? Or are you just more sort of passing through it? How tangible and solid really is it? There's multiple layers. It's as if you're going into a grand mansion. So you have your entrance hall, you have your reception area, and then you having your, shall we say, living space in which you dwell. What I do recall from one of the walk-ins is coming from a place I can only describe as beyond the stars, where there is like a black velvet nothingness. It's a very poor explanation, but that is the best I can give you, because how can you describe something that has no physicality, something that you can't really compare to something in this physical reality? That's the sort of twist to it all. It's like you get shown things, but how do you put them into words to convey them in this reality that people understand or can get a grasp for? I'm certain if any of you are walk-ins, you can relate to what I'm saying here. There is this transition period where the outgoing soul will let the incoming soul experience things. That incoming soul can then decide whether it wishes to actually fulfill the role and finish off the uncompleted tasks of the walkout soul. But walk-in souls, don't think of them as anything special. Walk-in souls can get bogged down and get stuck. The definition of insanity, and it applies both sides as it were, is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So this is why there was this memory wipe, this great reset that went on inside that has freed this being from a lot of trivia and clutter that it didn't need to carry around any longer. So don't be surprised if you've ever contacted me directly before and I really can't remember anything. Sometimes things will be prompted and they come back, but generally it's no different when I do a tarot card reading, when I'm not given a question of what will happen if I'm just given a request to do a reading. I'm very much going with feel and very much in the dark, which the counterpart is when you're on that side we could call the void, this black nothingness, where that walk-in soul would seem to be before taking up this role, this becoming the driver of the physical vehicle for however long it has. I have no fear of that. Statistically, it's going to be that you lay down in bed and then spirit separates from matter. And what is there to fear in that, really? There's been so much that has been pushed from the external that it's going to be a horrible experience. It's going to be agonizing. But even if it was, for how long? I can give you testimony to this as well. I have been through many previous experiences of finishing off lives in those dying moments to alleviate the suffering of that soul. The saying, it's a job to do, but somebody has to do it, comes to mind. It applies equally from the other side as from this side. So hopefully that will inspire you to do the best thing you can do for yourself, and that is to internalize all these questions. Another example would be you're wanting to move. You maybe start getting doubts that it's not going to happen. But consider this. Ask yourself the question, if I'm still in this same place I am at the moment, in 6 months' time, and at this present time, I'm clearly not happy where I am, and I do wish to move. So how will it feel if you're still there 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whatever later? From that, you will have the answer. So all that then is required is for you to not create the illusions of problems to try and solve. You hold true to the outcome of the wish fulfilled. I refer you to Neville Goddard, who talks very much about this in all his lectures. If you can make that, take from that, and make it your own, as you go through the experience, I've said this before about picture finding a feather, something you have the experience of holding, you know what it looks like, you know how light it is, you know what it feels like to touch it. And then just think no more of it. And I can more or less say, I can guarantee you that you will find a feather. This has happened so many times. I've had so much feedback to say, yes, it has happened. Even in some cases, right down to the specific colour. In that particular case, it was 3 yellow feathers. The only way you're going to know is to go through the experience. So if you really are fed up of this reality, this physicality, and you think it's all awful, you don't have to stay here. You can check out any time you like, because the irony is many are dying to get out of this reality, but they're equally and more so, there are souls that are willing to come and have the experience that would take up the role and carry on the role of that physical body in what it is here to do. That's another question that comes out of this. Do we have choice? Yes and no is the answer to that. You do have free will. You can go against what the universe has got for you, but if you go too far off the path, you will have a mountain dropped on you. It can seem very cruel in the way it does it, but it will give you the almighty jolt. It will bring you to rock bottom. You will experience that fall of the walls of Jericho moment, where it feels like your entire world has collapsed around you. That's just the closing of a chapter. An apocalypse is basically an epoch collapse. All it means is you've got to the end of a chapter, it's the start of a new one. But of course, like everything else, it has been given a negative connotation and something to be fearful about. When, again, that is just an illusion. Just watch it unfold. It's not, you'll see that I'm right. You'll see for yourself, because you will experience it yourself, and that is the only way you are going to truly know, is to put yourself through the experiences. Comes back to the analogy I've used about, are you going to read 100 books on learning to drive a car, or are you actually going to take the active step and get into a car and have that first driving lesson? Yes, it will feel terrifying. Yes, you will have to learn a whole new sequence of physical coordinations with the mind. But before long, once you have mastered that, it becomes second nature. Think how the words nature and spirit are very intrinsically linked, in the same way that the spirit that resides in the physical body is intrinsically linked to the physical. Hence you have an expression like nature spirit. They go hand in hand, and everything is closer than at hand. Anyway, I'm now going to attempt to upload this video. I may have to put the device on charge again, but hopefully that has given you more. I just happened to see 24:41 on the timing. See, a 144 being expressed again. Signs are given to you by day and by night. But how aware are we to see these signs? What is being reflected back to us? What gem, what pearl can we find if we are open to see what is in plain sight right in front of us? This is a beautiful experience. I have no desire to leave this physical experience, but as and when it happens, it will happen. I have no fear of it either. I've come from the void. I'll end up going back to the void. I'll have to report back, as it were. I will have to sort of download all the experiences to the collective self, the oversoul, the supreme being, whatever you want to call it. Because it is a carbon copy. But it's a diagnostic zone in which to test everything out. So those things you call mistakes, you've missed taking a golden opportunity. But in doing so, you're gaining experience. So perhaps when it comes round a second or a third time, you may recognize it. Likewise with the Saturn returns at roughly the ages of 30, 60 and 90. Is it better to have the Saturn return at the age of 30 and only have 30 years experience? Or is it better to have 90 years of experience and then have the Saturn return, or maybe take the middle path and have that Saturn return around the age of 60? Of course, this can be plus or minus 5 years either side of that potentially. There's no one size fits all. I can't give you a route map. How could I give you a route map when there are no physical coordinates? There are no time coordinates to any of this thing. But in this, there is a blueprint pattern. This is why I am sharing this, because I feel this is something that will benefit you. That is the intention anyway. So I'm going to say, as always, unconditional love to you all.